Hey everybody, today we're talking to Dan Hansen, President and CEO of Summit Hotel Properties. Summit just released their Q2 earnings report, so we're going to dive into that a little. We're going to find out Dan's opinion on the evolution of the hotel industry and why he thinks transactions are going to pick up over the next 12 months, which is good for me. Thanks for joining.
Great view. Where are you at? Is that your home office?
No, it's the office.
Office?
Yeah, I got to get out of the house.
When did you, was it a year ago or 2 years ago that you did the big office move?
Yeah, good question. Last year, July.
So last year? Okay.
Yeah. I want to have terrible timing.
Is the simulator broken yet? Or?
No, it's still working. It's getting a lot more use.
I gotta make a trip down there. I haven't seen that, but
come on, get on a plane, do something.
I will. Yeah.
Or don't.
If it's this slow for the rest of the year, I'm not gonna have anything else to do. So we're gonna be doing a Teague talk on a daily basis, I think.
Because we're all just bored.
Got to find some stuff to do for sure. Look, it's gonna be a heck of an opportunity if you're patient and have the wherewithal in the stomach for it.
When is that coming?
The recovery?
Sure, or the opportunities.
Yeah, look, I think it's early. I think people are still trying to figure out exactly what they have. I think there's still a little bit of game of chicken going on with the banks. I think lenders are in a tough spot, just like owners are, just like the brands are. And I think trying to find that thread the needle, so to speak, to find the path back, I think is going to be top of mind, at least, for the next quarter or so. I do, ascribe the odds it'll be a little longer than shorter. I don't think next year we're back, but I think it's improved. It seems like the consensus is never right. So when everybody is projecting a longer recovery, I would generally err on the shorter side. When people say it's going to take longer for business to recover, I would probably, take the other side of that argument, at least for the kind of the intermediate term. It does feel like this fall is going to be a little softer than originally anticipated, though.
Yeah, we were seeing, I don't know what you're projecting occupancy and RevPAR wise, but back in April, everyone was like, oh, it'll be 50+%, and now it's still in the 40s.
Yeah, I think there was a hope that business travel would come back, at least in a limited capacity. And I think everybody is kind of a believer that that's not necessarily the case and probably unlikely. And look, I think that as evidenced by the few times I have been out, people want to be out. They don't want to be doing this. They want to be doing this in person. They want to go to conferences. But until employers are willing to let people go, I think it's going to be more of this and less of the in-person meetings. But as soon as that opens up, I think things will move in a pretty strong way because people just want to get out. We're not wired to just sit and do Zoom calls and work from home. It sounds good until you have to do it for a prolonged period of time. We're social beings, right? We want to engage in a variety of activities, whether it's personal and professional. And I think that in and of itself gives me optimism that we're going to get back sooner than, some of the naysayers would say.
But is that still post-vaccine? We got to get a vaccine for everybody to feel comfortable getting on planes and going to shake hands.
I think you'll have to have a vaccine for businesses to feel comfortable allowing people to go travel. But I don't think there needs to be a vaccine for people to want to travel because we're seeing it now. Maybe we're not seeing quite as much air travel, but people are traveling. But if they can't travel for work because either the business is struggling like many of our businesses are, and you're cutting back on travel, then I think until they will kind of loosen up the restrictions there, and that might be a vaccine that gets legal and compliance comfortable saying, hey, it's okay to travel in these limited capacities.
All right, so I'm going to dive into your portfolio real fast. Listen, you guys have a well-diversified, seemingly well-positioned limited service portfolio. 72 assets, 23 markets. What are you seeing nuanced in your portfolios? Same stuff everyone's seeing?
Yeah, look, I mean, our urban stuff is not doing as well as our suburban stuff. Our extended stay is doing better than our more transient hotels. So that I think is pretty consistent among all portfolios. We do have some markets that maybe act a little bit different. Like we have an asset in downtown Charlotte that does well on weekends, right? It's not exactly, it's an urban market, but it can be acts a little bit more like a drive-to market. Downtown Atlanta on weekends has actually been good for us. I'm not sure who's driving to downtown Atlanta, but we're having some strong weekend business there at both our Courtyard and AC. So
Not me.
um, yeah, it's different. But we're running them all lean. But no, I'd say in general, our portfolio is acting much like the industry as a whole.
I'm just on business, so I'm going to go to the other business question, which is liquidity and cash burn. I saw your Q2 report, so you guys are in great shape, but explain.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 2 to 3 years of liquidity to ride out this, what could be a prolonged downturn. Personally, I don't think it'll be that prolonged, but it does give us the flexibility. But yeah, we're still burning through $7 to $8 million a month, which adds up, right? And while we're kind of break even at the hotel level, we have some work to do to get back to where we're cash flow. We have great people out in markets driving business, but in the absence of that business traveler, which is we're pretty much balanced 50-50 between business and leisure. In the absence of that traveler, pushing rates difficult. Not that it was easy prior to the downturn, but yeah, it's we still have a ways to go. But as you pointed out, we do have good liquidity and good runway.
Have you dropped rates trying to gain occupancy? Getting into
Yeah,
that
I mean,
corner battle?
in some markets, sure. I think you're trying to get to what would be a break even, and the balance of that between rate and occupancy will fluctuate depending upon the hotel and the drivers. Right now, it's predominantly leisure business, so much more price sensitive. But fortunately, we've spent several $100 million over the last 5-6 years. So most of our properties are well renovated in good shape. So I think we're competing pretty nicely from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm guessing you've been able to push your PIPs back and any other capital expenditures back a few, I don't know, years.
Yeah, we've pushed everything off except projects we had underway at this point. We're still going forward with projects like, keyless entry and things like that are still kind of in line with, the frictionless guest experience that we're all trying to move forward with. But for the most part, it's finishing up projects, and we'll do one or two from here on out until we get on more stable footing.
And talk debt with me. I don't think you guys have much debt issues. You know how many maturities?
No, we've got a couple years before there's any
Right.
maturities, so we've got that flexibility. And John Stanner and Adam Waddell and our team have done a masterful job managing the balance sheet. So we're in pretty good shape from any near-term maturity issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in great shape. Again, $270 million in cash. You can hang out for a while.
Yeah, look, hanging out's kind of not our DNA, right? I mean, that's kind of not how we look at things. I think while we can do that, I think our goal is to try to find ways to add value and at some point be positioned to be a little bit more on the offense. I'm a little weary of the discussions about when we get back to 2019 RevPAR, because
Yep.
I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. We are where we are, right? We are here today, and I like our hotel portfolio today. I like I think there's great value here, and we will continue to earn our way back to profitability and outperformance at some point. To the extent we can capitalize on other opportunities, we'd sure like to do that. But I think the path back is going to be filled with hard work. And sitting by and watching it happen just probably isn't as much fun as going out and finding opportunities. So we look forward to getting active again at some point.
How do you think you're going to transition your own portfolio, over the course of the next year, 3, 5?
Yeah, so we've had a history of buying and selling. I probably as much, if not more, than anybody. And
Agreed.
Our founder Gary Bucklehide was probably a very much overlooked visionary in this space, right? He's one of the finest men I'll ever know. And he taught me early on that you just can't fall in love with your hotels. And I remember going to him with the recommendation to sell one of the first hotels that he built. And I was like, oh gosh, he's never going to want to sell this. And I put this great report together, and he looked at it and opened the first page and looked at the summary and said, yep, it's time to go. And just pushed it right back at me. And he's like, are you surprised? And I said, well, yeah. And he's like, it's just math. You just can't get attached to these properties. And, it bodes well for a company like yours, because I do believe that the relationships and the connectivity with buyers and sellers is going forward going to be one of the few ways to create, outsized growth in this space. I've been a believer in that for a long time. And it's unfortunate because there's so many great hoteliers that, have built family legacies on buying and building and owning for the long term. But it's just getting harder and harder to make money without transacting, right? The PIPs are getting more expensive, and the cost of construction is getting incredibly high. The supply and the alternative accommodations, and it feels like there is this, and I've been guilty of it too. You and I have debated value of hotel, right? You kind of fall in love with this. This is mine. I built it. To me, it's like your kids, right? I mean, everybody thinks their kid is a little bit smarter and a little bit better athlete than they probably are. And we all think our hotels are a little nicer and need a little bit less CapEx, but that may not be a reality. And accepting that reality and knowing that these aren't forever assets. Hotels, not your kids. Your kids are forever assets, so don't recycle, your kids. But as far as hotels go, you've got to, if you're really trying to build something, you got to be open to the idea of moving on. And I think that's the one thing that, our founder, Gary, instilled in me early on, is that don't fall in love with your assets. You are where you are. Can you create value, and then move on?
So what do you think that hold period looks like in the future?
I think it's very much individual and opportunistic. And I think there are certain circumstances where you want to sell it before a renovation is due. And there are certain situations where you can probably do a renovation cheaper or better or more unique, and it pays to get that done and then get it ramped up again. But, I think each hotel is unique and distinct, and I don't think there's a one size fits all. And that's, I guess, I think a little bit of our secret sauce is, we do a lot of our own project management, our design work. We have our own internal revenue management. So each one gets kind of its own unique strategy.
So if you see the industry shifting to a transaction-based world, which is music to my ears, but I'm thinking, so we have our individual owners who are typically great developers and builders and product of stuff, and often operators. Then we have the private equity that tends to buy something, fix it, hold it 3 to 5 years, and then flip it. And then we have the REITs, you guys, who hold cash flow, hold cash flow, distribute a dividend. Yeah. So what do you think the future is of the REIT world?
It's tough. I think when we went public with the idea of being unlike other REITs, which is recycling capital, buying and selling assets. So taking a lot of what we were and how we created value as a private company and trying to do it inside of a REIT wrapper. So we're not what some would consider a consolidator, right? We're a value creator. We'll buy and we'll sell, and we'll take the risk of selling something, taking the profits, and trying to reallocate the capital, where a lot of others would just like to keep bringing in assets and paying out a dividend. That just gets really hard because there's always a renovation due, right? And whether you're own it long term or you're selling it, but there are these cycles, and sometimes there are these market cycles, within economic cycles where you should take advantage of opportunities. San Francisco is a great example, right? You could have sold any hotel at a low cap rate in San Francisco a year ago, and today they're closed. So what should you have taken that opportunity? Absolutely. Hindsight's always 2020, but there are windows when valuations don't make sense, and it's hard for REITs to do that. So I think from an individual development standpoint, there are a lot of great developers, that we're all friends with, and we've seen, buying and selling going on. Private equity's got generally a time period of a fund life that, creates movement. And I think there's certainly an opportunity for all those to kind of fit together. But ours is a little bit less like some of the other REITs that are more long-term holds.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job of transitioning your portfolio. I mean, how many of your original assets do you still own?
So we had 65 when we went public. We have 72 today, and 5 are the original 65. Yeah. So kind of quietly, we have kind of structured the entire portfolio. But there's always a bottom 10% of the portfolio. And there's always unique opportunities where a hotel is probably, because of market dynamics and demand, is priced above where you may think it is valued, and taking advantage of those and reallocating the capital into something that is, underinvested, or a market that may be out of favor, that to me is where we think the opportunities will lie.
Well, I think you've proven you can do it. To give you kudos, it's easy to hold. It's difficult to trade something, either buy or sell. One, you have to have relationships. Two, you have to have the guts to make a decision, because you now put yourself on the board for scrutiny. Oh, why'd they sell for that? Oh, why'd they buy? They paid too much. They sold too little. You guys have proven in all market conditions, we don't care. We're going to make the right decision and hope it'll work out.
That is the challenge of being public, right? Because it is by definition public. So what you buy and what you sell at is very much looked at and read through, and people try to, take a view on whether that was a good deal or a bad deal. And it's unfortunate that in the space that we're in, in many people's eyes, there has to be a winner and a loser in a transaction. There just doesn't, right? There can be. We've sold assets at very low cap rates to local owner operators that those are just cap rates that would made us look very smart, but they bought it with a specific opportunity in mind. They had local management. They had clusters of assets. They could run them very well together. They may be able to do a renovation cheaper or better. They may be able to do some consolidation. They may be able to cut expenses. We're a public company. So I think that is really, unfortunately, what we deal with is that notion that there has to be a winner and a loser. And I don't believe that. I don't think hotel transactions are a zero-sum game. I think part of it's timing, part of it's opportunity, and part of it's a differing opinion on, where a valuation may lie based on, demand and opportunity. So I think sometimes people get too caught up on headline numbers. And that, like I said, is a little bit unfortunate.
So let's move to, sort of economy, but all right, college football, we're seeing it starts to crumble. How do you see that from a hotel perspective? I don't know if you have any assets in any Pac-12 or Big Ten markets, but what's that going to do to valuations of those now non-college markets?
I think all the cancellations are just a continued, detrimental effect for hotels. Anything that is draws media attention to, the COVID-19 crisis is just negative for travel. And I think, unfortunately, college football, at least for myself and probably you and a lot of America, was so much being looked forward to, right? It's like we've had so much time where, Netflix reruns and have been, wearing on us, that just to see some live sports has been exciting. And so I think more than anything else, it's just a little bit depressing to think that we're not going to have that. And But I do think it does affect some of the markets with, particularly some of the smaller college towns, with occupancy. One more reason that Q4, Q3, and Q4 is probably going to be slower as some of this travel that was anticipated starts to dissipate.
Yeah, and I agree with you psychology wise. I was just wondering if that means you're going to start investing in SEC college towns and getting out of Big Ten college towns. I don't know if it trickles that far or not.
Look, I think we're very much bottom up underwriters. So, we would look at an asset that was dislocated, just like anybody else, that, if the convention center was closed and occupancy was down because of that, you got to underwrite a rebound. And, does the seller underwrite that rebound different than the buyer? But yeah, I don't think the current crisis and the cancellation of football or anything like that creates a permanent impairment. But it does matter in this environment where we're already on historically low occupancy rates. That's a bigger concern, right? If you're just getting to the spot where you're cash flowing and you're starting to get the franchise fees paid and your banks paid, and then you start to lose those big SEC weekends, then do you need more forbearance and more flexibility? That's different than I was running 89%, now I'm going to run 69%. So I do think that might have a larger effect, mostly on the individual assets in those markets. But I don't think provided you can weather the storm, I think it'll be back and it'll be stronger than ever.
And we're starting to see, in the short run at least, we're starting to see where the banks don't want to lend in college markets at the moment, which has not been the case. It's been total opposite. They love those markets, and now they're staying away from them.
Yeah, lending is going to be a unique opportunity to see how that evolves, right? I never thought that lending would be back to the level it was this last cycle after the last down cycle. So how does it come back from here? Does it get all the way back to where it was? Does it get halfway back? Is it a capacity issue? Is it an allocation issue? Do hotels get a lower allocation in a lender's book? Is it a lower loan to value? Is construction lower loan to cost? I think all that has to be figured out yet. I do think that the banks have to understand that they are part of the solution too, and their flexibility is going to be important, not just protecting their loan, but the asset which protects their loan. So we're hopeful, and I'm hearing stories that banks, despite being in a tough spot as well, are starting to provide some flexibility that hopefully will allow owners to get through this rough patch.
So put your banker hat on. What's going to get you comfortable? What's going to get the banks comfortable? Is it a vaccine? Is it a therapeutic? Is it the election?
Look, I think the election matters, right? And without going too detailed into politics, I think it's hard not to look at the coronavirus and the ramifications of it and not read politics into it, because that's what you see on TV every day. It's this, they're not doing this, they should be doing this. This person is should be having this narrative, and whether it's social media, normal media, or politics, I think everybody's after the same thing, which is safety and an opportunity to get find their way back. So I do think that this is going to be something that we'll look back on, and there'll be some great lessons learned here. But I hope what the lessons learned are more about, we had a chance to spend more time with our family outdoors, enjoying things, other than politics ruined another, and the reaction to coronavirus ruined a whole generation of wealth and education for our kids. Hopefully it'll be broader than that, and there'll be some positive takeaways.
So I hope you have been spending time with the family. I know you and your daughter were big golfers, golf a lot together. Tell me you got to play some golf with your daughter throughout.
We did get to play some golf. We got a chance to do some hiking and some fly fishing and things like that this summer. Not as much as we would have liked. We were kind of staying fairly close to home. We, more staycations in and around Austin than anything else. But it has been fun. It wasn't exactly, my daughter's dream to be attending online classes and living at home, although I liked it certainly more than she did. But, she is back, moved into her apartment here in Austin and ready to start classes again. So there'll at least be some level of normalcy for her.
Yeah, have you taken her back to school this week? Everybody's going back to college this week.
Yeah, actually 2 weeks ago we moved her in, and she's getting settled and getting ready to start classes. So she still has in-person classes so far, but my suspicion is some of those will go to online also.
And you guys were comfortable sending her, and she was ready to go. And
yeah, look, I've traveled. I'm not afraid to travel. I'll get on an airplane if anybody will see me. I think that my perspective is that there are things you can do to protect yourself, but that I don't want to let it get in the way of me engaging with individuals on a personal level. I wear a mask mostly to make other people comfortable. I do think it prevents the spread of COVID-19, and I think that's great. But I think our country was founded on wanting to go out and do things and engage with people. And I think we're risk takers as a society, and there should be certain things that we can do to curb, infection rates. But I don't think it means that we should have to be prisoners in our own homes and communities. I think there are, restrictions and logic that should prevail. But I'm excited to get out and get and see people again.
so when do we get to see each other face to face again?
Soon. I think we were, when this was starting to happen was right when your conference was taking place, right? And so I know that was a tough decision for you to make. I mean, maybe I know this is Q&A for me, but what would be your perspective on how you make that decision? And if you were scheduling a conference for this fall, how would you think about it as a business owner and being respectful of the different constituencies that are coming?
So I think it's tough. I mean, I just think until there's vaccines and therapeutics, it's going to be tough to have mass gatherings. So I'm fascinated as an attendee to see what happens with the conferences coming up this fall.
Yeah.
Instincts are they probably get kicked, but who knows? Business-wise, we're looking at the Hunter Conference next year. I mean, it's March. So we're optimists. So we think that there'll be solutions by then and that the world had better be back coming or we got even bigger problems.
Yeah.
But we're doing virtual and planning on all kinds of stuff to have plan B. And maybe it's A and B doing it the same. But I'm not sure we're going to be the same. I think we're going to have fundamental pivots that last for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you for some good news. Leave me with some good news.
Well, we have an election coming up, and elections usually signify change. I don't think there's a clear winner or favorite. It really depends upon who you talk to. But I do think the election puts a lot of stuff behind us. And just like 90 days ago, there was a completely different perspective on Q4. I think 90 days from now, we'll have a different perspective, certainly post-election, on the recovery for next year. I think it's better than people are anticipating. I think generally the consensus is wrong. So as the consensus gets more and more negative about Q4 and the election and the potential ramifications, I think that all gets reflected in people's psyches. And once we start passing some of those milestones, I think people are starting to think forward and look forward again. So I do think next year is going to be a better year than people are estimating because there is this pent-up demand of people wanting to get out and travel.
All right, that is going to be a better mood. So we shouldn't totally abandon this business altogether right now.
No, I don't think so. Look, I think we all love the business. We're all trying to find reasons not to throw in the towel. And I just look at, we are where we are. Would you own the hotels that you own at the valuation they are today? The answer is absolutely yes. Now, do you want to own them at maybe the basis you had or what they're worth? Look, it doesn't feel good, but we are where we are. Let's pull up our bootstraps. Let's get back to work. Let's negotiate the best deals we can, and know that after the last downturn, it took years for us to get back. We're going to get back there. People are going to travel again. Zoom meetings like this are a great fill-in, but they're still just a tool. It doesn't replace, the hugs and the handshakes and the fist bumps that we all have every time we're together. It doesn't replace, the cocktail parties and the deals that are done, over a beer on a sidebar at a conference. And people, that's pent up. People want to get out, right? The few times that I've been out and got together with people, it was like Christmas, right? I think people want to get out and see people again. So, look, I think it's been interesting how efficient Zoom calls are, and Microsoft Teams. I've been pleasantly surprised, but it just doesn't replace the person-to-person contact. So I'm looking forward to it, and look forward to seeing everybody soon.
I'm looking forward to seeing you too. Buy me a drink and a cocktail and a steak next time I see you, will you please?
Sounds great.
Dan, you're a good friend. I appreciate the time, as always.
Anytime, Teague. All right, be well.
Thank you too.
Take care.